Unprogrammed.
What's up, everybody? I think we're live. We're talking today about Ahsoka. You know the drill, but we're back. We're back. Take a few weeks off because I've been traveling around all around the freaking country and or world, parts of the world anyway. It's been a journey, but we're back here. We're really ready and hyped to talk about this amazing episode that we got last week. I can't wait to dive into it. I got Michael B. and Andy Mason.
Hi.
All right, guys. I'm not gonna waste too much time. This is gonna be a spoiler-filled thing. We're gonna dive into it. We've taken a few weeks off. There's been some episodes that have come out. We've been talking about them the whole time on the Discord. I finally got my act together and linked the Discord in the description. Please join, hang out with us. If I'm ever in the middle of Tennessee or wherever else and can't do an episode, we're talking about it on the Discord. So come hang out with us. It'd be a lot of fun. It was a blast. All right, let's dive into this one though, because this was epic. This was amazing, and I want to get everybody's initial thoughts, and then I'll give mine. Andy, I'll start with you.
I couldn't be more thrilled. I mean, this is the episode that gave me everything I wanted and everything that I didn't know I could have. So I'm feeling super grateful, super happy. I really have no complaints, just all love, all nostalgia. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. This was a lot of things didn't know I wanted, like you said. But geez, Louise, it was awesome. Michael, what'd you think?
I'm in the same boat. It was all fantastic. Not a lot of negative to say about this one, although I'm sure we can nitpick anything to death, no matter how good it is. It would I reiterate everything you guys said. Everything we know. We didn't know that we wanted really obviously a Dave Filoni love child episode. It was everything that he has sort of put into Star Wars, culminating into one episode, and we were all here for it.
100%. Yeah, it was just awesome. It was so great. All the stuff in the World Between Worlds, it was handled very well, I thought. All the articles that were flying around about Star Wars broke rules and we're gonna have multiverse and are the sequels gonna get retconned and yada 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 yada. Just like a Marok corpse just evaporated, and it was quite nice. At least for now, right? We have not done any of those things, and that was very very welcome. So how do we want to attack this? You want to start doing do characters or events? How do you guys think? What's best? Michael, what do you think?
I defer to the others. I'm happy with either way.
We're an indecisive bunch. Okay,
yes,
Andy, you got a decision?
I feel like this episode sort of starts back on Cetos.
Okay, so they changed different pronunciations, right? You had like Cetos, and then she was like Cietos or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, all right, I like it.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like Hera really impressed me this episode. I've been a supporter of this Hera since the beginning. I know Eric B's not here because he would disagree with me, but this episode, I think she just nailed Hera's character, and Jason just continues to, I continue to adore him, and seeing him connect with the Force and listen to the lightsabers clashing against the ocean waves. It was really special to see it all unfold.
Yeah, it was neat to see him get stuff to do for sure. It was interesting. He had a lot more to do than I expected, certainly. But I will say, I'm not dogging on the kid at all. I'm not doing the Jake Lloyd. I'm not doing it at all. But man, child actors, sometimes it's just like you can definitely tell. It's a little rough sometimes. But Michael, what do you think about Hera and Jason in this
I
episode?
think that is a rather hot take, to be honest. I didn't find his acting at all distracting. So we could maybe talk about baby Ahsoka, but honestly, I think that was a product of intention, the way that she was. But yeah,
My man
I
said
don't know.
Jason was better than little Ahsoka?
I'm
What?
not saying he was bad or good. I'm just saying I didn't find him distracting at all. At no point was I thinking about, oh, how is this kid's
Fair enough.
acting?
Fair enough.
What I was busy thinking about is, if this kid is so strong with the Force, why isn't Ahsoka training him instead of Sabine? Or why isn't he enrolled in Luke's Jedi Academy that Ahsoka clearly knows about, and they all probably know about? What's going on here? Why is like, and I would have expected at this point Hera sort of being justified and maybe trying to keep him away from that kind of stuff just because of, you know, his father's fate, but it doesn't really seem like it. She's kind of encouraging it. It's also really interesting to see Hera. I agree with everything Andy said too. I think I have no qualms with Hera and her character and the writing and everything, even if like physically there's still a weird kind of, she doesn't quite look, but it's like you're going from a stylized cartoon to live action. What are you going to do? She
It's
looks
hard, yeah.
like a Twi'lek from every other Star Wars, so I can't complain about that. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that she sort of started to hear the lightsaber fighting too. Like clearly,
Yeah.
that was an interesting thing. Not necessarily saying like, oh, does she have the Force, but as this sort of leaning heavily into, hey, everybody can sort of experience the
I love it.
Force if you have enough training, you know. So
Yeah, I love it,
But
man.
it
It's like that.
it
Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it reminds me of the moment at the end of Rebels when Kanan is a Force ghost and he places his hand on her shoulder and she reaches over and feels it. I don't I can't explain it. I don't know what to say about it. If
I
it's just her deep
mean,
love or her deep connection for him, what that means necessarily. I don't know if it needs to like I mean for me it doesn't even need to be explained. I just very
mm-mm.
much enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
there's
we've
a lot.
seen Force ghosts interact with live like non-Force things to set things on fire and
Even
throw
dice,
things.
you know.
Yeah, the dice. Oh yeah.
No, the thing I was going to say is there's a lot in this episode that I think is incredibly open to interpretation, and it feels good to be in a spot with Star Wars again where not everything makes sense. I think I've said that before in past episodes. It's kind of like when you're walking in a river, right, and you drag your foot and all the mud comes up and like you don't know what, maybe you kicked up something fun, but it doesn't quite make sense right now, and it'll all settle down and you'll get a clear picture, but right now you're just in the moment, right? It's a good time, and it's a beautiful thing, and I'm very, very glad to be back. It reminds me of what it felt like to be a kid playing with, Star Wars action figures, trying to be like, what is the Sith? Revenge of the Sith. Who's the Sith? And then my buddy was like, I know now it was Darth Nihilus, but he's like, it's this cloaked bad guy with a white mask, like that's what the Sith is. He's coming back. Get ready, and like, wrong, just totally wrong, but it was awesome. We were all so excited. I think there's a lot of that in this episode, with like Sith eyes and training and was it real, was it a dream, and all this different stuff. We'll get into all of it, but I love the uncertainty of it all. I love how mystical it all was. It's very Mortis, it's very George Lucas, really, and it's obviously incredibly Dave Filoni. So yeah, I loved every bit of it. Let's dive into the World Between Worlds now. What did you guys think when we first jumped back into that?
Michael, go first.
You
I
got to
just
pick
have
somebody.
praises.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just have praises to sing, honestly. So if you
I
have
think
any criticisms,
yes, rely on me for the criticism.
I know.
I don't have any. I didn't like the World Between Worlds and Rebels, to be honest. Not like visually is super cool and the concept is interesting, but the fact that it connected time and Ahsoka herself was sort of pulled out of time and then put back into where she came, like that whole thing bothered me because it's something I don't know if we've talked about this before. I think Ed, you and I have, but I didn't like it because that was one thing that Star Wars didn't have that every other sci-fi series had and had played with, was like time travel. Star Wars had never really done it. I really liked that it hadn't done it. It stuck to its own sort of main storyline, but we had sort of a different take on what may be the same World Between Worlds, maybe a different or unrelated sort of ethereal cosmic force plane. It's not really clear because we don't know how she got there. We don't know if Anakin pulled her in necessarily or if she was just unconscious and all this was a vision somehow and she sort of mapped all this onto what she had seen in the World Between Worlds. I think it's really unclear. Otherwise, visually, super, super cool. I don't want to get too far ahead, but obviously the fighting and that we talked about that Jason could hear was really awesome. You got to see all that.
Yeah, no, the thing I was gonna say is just it's so open ended right now. They've left it to where there's a lot of different ways it could go. It could all be in her head, much like Han talking to Kylo in Rise of Skywalker. It's like was that all in his head? Was it not? Who knows, right? Yeah, it was very very interesting, and I did like this one a lot more than Rebels. At least the visual representation of it. This World Between Worlds has been something that terrifies me, because it's such a atom bomb of like we could totally destroy canon with one money grab episode and do some just ridiculous things. But so far, they've really taken care to make sure that doesn't happen, or at least it seems that way. Yeah, go ahead, Andy. Sing some praises. There's nothing says we can't just glow this episode, because it was a really good one. Don't be bashful about that.
No, so when I started watching this episode, I was watching it on my phone, and I got to this part and I was like, I can't, this is not doing it justice. I've got to turn this off. I've got to put on my TV and start over because it was just blowing me away, just like the visuals and the concepts of what was going on. I mean, um, just hearing Anakin and Ahsoka communicate, like just 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 all these happy feelings. And so exciting. I was on the edge of my seat literally the whole time, which is something I don't think I had in any previous episode. Um, Liked the previous episodes, loved some of them, but didn't feel that, oh my God, where is this going like I did with this one. And a big part of that was the World Between Worlds. I agree. I really loved how it looked visually and just how we got from one place to the next. And I mean, when I saw those phase one clone troopers running towards the camera, I was like, I was freaking out.
That was
Yeah, I
big too.
mean,
I
yeah.
was gonna say the same thing. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, I mean, for a lot of these things, but that was the first time we've ever seen Phase One clones, real Phase One clones, in any sort of live action Star Wars medium. People would think that's kind of a weird statement because we obviously saw them in Episode Two, but they were all CGI. So this was really cool to see fully kitted out cosplayers. I mean, actors in gear, and they did look a little funny because it's not they weren't realistic proportions. The animation didn't quite do them justice in the original in Episode Two, but
Mm-hmm.
it was so
Mm-hmm.
awesome to see them real, and we got to see then Phase Three clones as we went further. It was it was so cool. I had to explain that to Hannah. She was like, "Do you know why this is so significant? This is awesome."
Yeah, so I'll bring in the Lauren takes now, because watching it with her, she knew that it was awesome, or that it was epic for dorks like me, but she was like, wow, this is very video gamey, right? And I was like, well, it's a dream, it's not going to have you know perfect stuff like that. And I don't know, I was having a laugh because it was awesome, but by the same token, I was kind of like, yeah, this must be pretty jarring for the uninitiated. I definitely had a little empathy there at that moment, but it was cool, man, getting to see all of that stuff. The Phase One clones, freaking Anakin's clone armor. I think I've got some pictures. Let me pull that up. That's them fighting. Young Ahsoka. They did such a great job. The actor
Nice
apparently
of
was
them
in
to
Avengers. I don't know.
say nice of them to give her the more modest outfit that they kind of threw in there in the Tales of the Jedi, because that's definitely not what her outfit looks like in Clone Wars.
Yeah, we're gonna pretend the tube top never existed because, well,
Yeah,
why did it?
yeah,
Even
yeah.
even the leather catsuit thing was a little bit different than this outfit we see her in here. This one is we see
A
her
bit
in
more
sort of an in
functional.
between.
Yeah,
Yeah, we see her in sort of an in between outfit in the Tales of the Jedi, and that's really really close, if not exactly what this is.
correct. Yeah, I'm less on the train of modesty as much as just like functionality. Just saying, it's so ridiculous that they'd put a 12-year-old in a tube top on a battlefield. That was the most crazy thing that ever happened, and I'm glad they're kind of reversing course on that. Not unlike the Slave Leia, metal bikini thing. They've kind of started to scrub that out, which is not a bad direction, I think. Um, Yeah, so Anakin here, we just gotta, to steal from Andy, sing some praises of Hayden. I mean, what an awesome episode to get so much of him, and just such a happy blend of Hayden and Matt Lanter, and not that they use his voice, but the kind of mannerisms, like you can tell Hayden watched this stuff
Yes.
and really blended it all together. It was, gosh, it was so cool. I loved it. That was great.
Shout out
Yeah.
to
It
UPS
was
man in the chat.
UPS man. That is my Michael. What did he say?
Let's
Yes, Phase
see.
One clones. I knew you'd like that. No, wait, I
Oh, I'm
thought
loving
Hayden
it.
did amazing seeing Anakin, and I heard Matt Lanter's Anakin as well. And I just want to shout out some support for Matt Lanter and Ashley Eckstein, because there are haters on the internet, um, just kind of like saying things like Matt Lanter couldn't do this or Ashley Eckstein couldn't do this. And I don't think live action is any more valuable than our animated series that we love so much. It's just a different way to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I did definitely appreciate seeing Hayden's rendition of this Anakin that is a little different from episode one or episode two and three, but it's still Anakin and we still love him.
No, 100%. It was awesome, and it was cool to see like some of the way he was speaking. It was sort of Lucasy. The dialogue was a happy medium. It was sort of Shakespearean, sort of pseudo profound with the way he was saying stuff, but it also wasn't nearly as rough as watching Attack of the Clones. And I loved it so much. I can't say enough. I love that we're on Ryloth here. Like you get to see Cham Syndulla's freedom fighters back there. That was cool. They crammed so much in to these little flashbacks. Gosh, there's so much to say. I mean, people had some things to say about his de-aging. I thought he looked stellar in this one. I mean, just
Yeah,
absolutely perfect.
I actually thought he looked better in the Clone Wars de-aging than he did the first time we saw him in the World Between Worlds. I don't know what if it was just the hairstyle or whatever. Like trying to match exactly how he looked in Episode 3 was a little bit hard, but like somewhere in between or somewhere off with a different hairstyle, I just thought it fit for me. So that looked a lot better. This was a little something's heavy going on with his eyebrows, but like, what are you gonna do? You're never gonna make everybody happy with that. You can do all the makeup you want or CGI or deep faking, but like someone's gonna complain. So I'm glad we
I'm
got it
more
either
than
way.
happy to say they made me incredibly happy. I mean, this was
Right.
just unreal. And it's being brought up in the chat right now. Taylor's saying the lightsabers. I mean, it's just seeing the choreography. I mean, that man swinging that sword is just everything. I love it so much. They use some of the choreography from the prequels, his kind of behind the back flourishes that he's so good at. And just the power. Like it was such a blend of Anakin, but also there's some Vader in there too, like the kind of big powerful strokes and everything like that. It was, I don't know, man. I'm not nearly as eloquent as I feel like I might be normally. This was just awesome. Like I'm just a big dork rolling around smiling. Like I don't know what else to say. This was everything I ever wanted. Andy, what did you think about the fighting and the choreography there?
I am not like I'm not snobby about fighting in the choreography because I don't know near enough about it. I just kind of look at it and go, that looks cool. But I noticed it in this episode. I mean, I could see just things that things that I've seen before, and the way he fought made me feel a way that I felt before when we've seen Anakin fight. And like you said, Vader, like I could definitely see some of that too. Um, yeah, without really I don't know anything about fighting techniques.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I have a lightsaber, and I'm like, oh, 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 I need to take a class on this or something.
The sort of custom behind the back flourish that he does, I've always wanted to learn it. It is so
Yes,
cool.
yeah.
I know Star Wars Theory took the time and actually like mastered that, and he did a video about it, and it was just like, that is That is just so cool. I am extremely jealous. That is something I would love to take the time to do. But let's dive into the stuff that maybe doesn't make as much sense, or at least is more confusing, more open to interpretation. The sort of dark side Anakin back and forth. I'm very intrigued by this, and I don't have much in the way of concrete takes on it. I'm just kind of here for the journey. But I'm interested to see what your guys' perspectives are, because we would think, given the timeline, that this is Force Ghost Anakin. He's back, albeit with all that baggage, probably. He's probably got a little Vader in him. Um, but what do you guys make of this sort of jump back and forth that we saw so much of? Do you think Anakin was doing that for Ahsoka's benefit, kind of like forcing her to confront him in all stages of himself and his life, or is it again more or less in Ahsoka's head, and is that like kind of her dealing with different versions of her master? And I'll start with you, Michael.
I think it could be any and all of the above. We see Balin sort of tee this up, and obviously
That
they
was my
play the
take.
quote. Yeah.
Take a
So
side.
he he uh he sort of tees it up in the previous episode, and we hear that quote, which is talking about how Anakin's legacy is death and destruction, or something like that, and so is hers. And so we sort of see her go through this whole journey where she has flashbacks and she sees the kind of horror and trauma that she went through as sort of starting as an innocent young Padawan, like, oh my gosh, I got to learn all this stuff, and then becoming a very adept warrior and sort of almost losing herself in the fact that now she's a warrior. She's not a peacekeeper. In fact, we sort of hear Anakin say, well, we used to be peacekeepers, and now, that's what Obi-Wan trained me to be, but now I'm going to train you to be a warrior. And I don't think we're meant to hear that and say that's actually what happened or what he intended, but that is sort of her perception of it. So I don't know. I think that they intentionally don't make it clear. Is this actually Force Ghost Anakin glitching in the Force, in the cosmic Force here, where he's kind of going and dealing with his own sort of back and forth dark side thing? Or is this her sort of having a subconscious, I mean, she's just drowning in the water, maybe projecting all of her consciousness out for the world to hear, like Jason can hear it. But I don't know. I tend to lean towards this is maybe just her own sort of construction. Otherwise, I don't understand how she sort of teleported out of existence into this different plane and then there and then back in water. I kind of think that she's just unconscious dreaming all this stuff. But the immediate sort of knee-jerk take that I think most people had, if you've seen Lord of the Rings, is this is her White Wizard moment. This is her sort of redeeming herself, going through a metamorphosis, becoming who she's meant to be. I sort of had the take in the Discord. I said this is her Luke in the cave, or
Yeah,
Yoda in
yeah.
the Wills scene. Like, this is her actually fighting her demons and sort of becoming the Jedi she was meant to be. Or this could even be, if we take it from the side of this is actually Anakin, when he says I'm here to complete your training, there's sort of two connotations for that. There's one where we could say this is her completing the trials that she never actually completed. They say she's a former Jedi because by some definitions she became a Jedi, by some she didn't. Or this could be her completion of training that we hear Yoda talking to Obi-Wan about, completing his training and sort of communing with those who are dead, and eventually being able to like become a Force ghost after they die. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of open ends here. I doubt we'll really get answers, and I think honestly, especially when we talked about the sort of problems that the world between worlds creates, I think that we might be better off if they don't give us answers and we just kind of leave this as a
Yeah.
sort of interesting side quest. But I, for one, seeing those flashbacks, love them all, was really frustrated the whole time because of the way that they filmed them, where they had all the smoke and light, which I appreciated from like a from like a war story perspective, right? I always felt like Clone Wars really watered down these things that we're seeing, especially from a kid's show. But it's like, this is really gritty and dark, and we got that here. But it is also frustrating because I wanted to see more. I wanted to see what we're used to
Yeah.
seeing in
No,
Clone Wars. I'm
100%.
like, I want to see the city, I want to see the rest of the people, but they so intentionally sort of locked it down, and I think it did give you this sort of weird, distorted dream state of what was going on. So
Yeah, it was
I
kind of
like the whole
like
thing, but
one
who knows
part
why?
pensive from Harry Potter, right? Where it's all
Mm-hmm.
wispy all around, and then the other part, that scene from Attack of the Clones, where I mean, it's just the sandstorm, and that's how that one was brought about. But
It's
they
just
kind of
how it
just
looks.
borrowed that aesthetic. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're exactly right. I think the cave, it's 100% what we're doing here. Just weird, trippy stuff that doesn't make sense, but really helps the characters grow. And by doesn't make sense, I mean just like in a real sort of tangible way. It's all metaphorical. It's all spiritual. It's all trippy. But it helps them grow and become who they need to be to finish their journey out. Taylor's really popping off in the chat here. She's got a lot of things that are quite good. I wanted to reference. She was saying as far as it's all in his head or in her head. She's saying that in opposition to that, he references Luke saying he won't fight him, and Ahsoka's never seen that. I thought as soon as I read that, Rebels, but you're right, Taylor. She never said that to him in Rebels. It was I won't leave you. So yeah, it's interesting. It does seem like there's a lot of credence to the idea that it's like Anakin or Vader, however you want to slice it, is injecting himself there. And there's a lot there as far as the way the choreography, the fighting, like the way he switches styles, like you pointed out, Taylor. Using moves from the prequels. I mean, it's just awesome stuff, man. I am running out of superlatives for it, but my goodness, just amazing, amazing things. One thing I liked was similar to how I gushed about Sabine last episode being herself. I loved the moment where she's fighting Vader, the Vader version of Anakin, and she goes dark. Those eyes come out, and then she moves past it, and it's just so great to see Ahsoka really being the, if not the best of us, right? Like I always say, really a signpost for a good Jedi. And I'm interested to see in the future of Star Wars canon more interactions between her and Luke, because I want them to talk, and I want them to kind of co-host a forced chat and try to figure out some of these things and make sense of it all, because there's a lot there. All right, Andy, I'm going to bring you back in. What did you think of the sort of dark side twist and any of that toward the end there with the Vader element and all of those things?
Oh, it was like I said earlier, just so incredibly exciting. I really wish I could have seen the move in theaters feature of this episode. Um, that would have been killer because,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, just like cinema, just like what was it, it was amazing to watch. You guys really, I agree with pretty a lot of what was said. I'm in the same boat as Michael that there's a lot of different explanations and it's probably somewhere in between and probably won't be fully fleshed out as far as explanations go, and I'm fine with that. I do think it's very spiritual for Ahsoka, and I think people forget that she is imbued with the light. And we saw in Mortis, right, that the
Mm-hmm.
light gave her life essence to her, and there was Morai in Rebels, and I don't know if Morai will make an appearance in Ahsoka. Um, I would love to see that. But yeah, just seeing, like it was said earlier, her metamorphosis, going through all of this, it was really moving. It was really moving to watch.
And one of the things I want to bring up, like this is not a hot take in any way, but you know how like sometimes things just kind of click. Um, this episode was one of those. Seeing live action kid Ahsoka just really, really drove home to me. Like these are children soldiers, like we have this conceptual knowledge, of course, being the canon joke. I'm like, she was 14 here and then 15 here and blah, blah, blah. But like, this is war and that's a kid. And I don't
That actress
care
was
how you slice
16.
it. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
intense, man. I mean, this
Yeah,
stuff is heavy. And like again, we talked about Hera before, right? Like the traumas that she's gone through over her life. I mean, it is just these women have been brutalized by this galaxy from basically day one, and it's to see what they've done, the journeys that they've gone on is just so harrowing. It's really really wild. Uh,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I
Andy.
agree with you there on seeing the babies in war because I saw we see young Ahsoka on Ryloth and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so absolutely perfect. And then I saw her on Mandalore, and I got hung up for a second. I was like, she looks too young because, and then I realized I'm like, yeah, she was only like 17 on Mandalore. Like she's a baby. Like she wasn't a full blown adult like she is in my mind so often. So it was I loved seeing it in live
and
action as
and,
well. Am I right
and
that she was
again, yeah, like
17?
yeah, like about I'm not gonna, I don't know all the ages, I'm spacing on it, but like if to see that progression again, like to see this little girl being so torn up by the death in that first scene, and then seeing her on Mandalore just a few years later, still young, still fresh, but just demolishing these humans, like they're bad people, we get it, but like she had
with
embraced
Beskar
the
armor.
soldier. Yeah, oh yeah, she was badass, just killing these dudes,
was
and it was wild.
Was anybody
Go ahead.
else bothered by the fact that she never used two lightsabers, even as a kid, and she never held them backwards? I felt like that's such a signature thing for her. It was kind of weird to not see that. I understand why she wasn't fighting with two as an adult against Anakin, but even when we saw the flashbacks, I'm pretty sure we never saw her using two blades. We never saw her second
we
green one,
As
and she never really held them backwards, which was kind of sad.
we saw her with two, two blue ones, but you're right, we never saw it backwards. With everything else we
We know
got, I
it's not
wasn't like.
practical, but still.
Yeah, yeah, but you're right. Yeah, it was something that was definitely missing. There's no doubt. All right, let's do it. I've waited long enough. What do we think about seeing freaking Rex, man? That
Oh man,
was that was
oh
so
man.
so amazing.
I
I
wanted to see his
just
face though.
Yeah, but who knows, man? I
yeah.
think we might get it. I'm still holding out hope. I bet he's chilling
Yeah.
on Adelphi with Zeb, and it'll be awesome. But
Well,
um,
this is the question: is what's going to happen with Hera? Like, are we switching back to an entirely just Ahsoka focused show, or are we still going to see flash back and forth between the galaxies with Hera? Because now, maybe to sort of settle this whole thing, maybe Hera's going to go and round up the rest of the rebels to go save Sabine. I don't think Ahsoka really filled her in on the nature of Sabine's sort of exit from CTOS or whatever we called it. So, I don't think Hera has any hard feelings about that. All she knows is her friends sort of been abducted and went with them. So now, hopefully we see Zeb. Hopefully we see Rex. Maybe Callus. I don't know.
the whole the
Could be
whole
really
gang,
cool.
man.
Could be
The
great.
whole gang.
Oh,
Let's
oh, oh!
do it.
That was the other thing too. Is towards the end, there's the shot where we see Jason sort of sitting and staring out of the ocean, and I was like about to scream if we saw Force Ghost Kanan. I was like, I was really waiting for it, and I am kind of sad we didn't get that. But I was
Damn
like,
it.
I don't know if I can handle it. I don't know if I can handle it. I'm sorry, Adam, stealing your take too, but I'm like,
No,
it was
no,
the
it's not.
perfect shot.
You didn't
It
steal
was
my take. You
perfect.
just gave me something new that I didn't know I wanted. The episode did enough of it. I don't need you to do that.
Because
That would have been
you've
great,
seen all the
man.
people talking about how they think Freddie Prinze Jr. modeled for the photo that's on the Ghost dashboard, right? Have you seen that?
Yes, I
Because
had seen people
yeah.
talking about
I
that.
do I
Yeah.
do like that. He's obviously said and argued he'll never come back to Star Wars, but his reasoning sort of is negated by his own character. So I'm not
And
sure.
also, money.
The people lie, right? But yeah, if they can convince Harrison Ford to
I
come back for
lied.
another one, I'm sure they can convince Freddie Prinze Jr.
Exactly.
for a
Exactly. I need
cameo.
to make that Darth Vader from Force Unleashed. I need to make that a button. Just all of that. The amount of times we say that, that's that's great. Um oh goodness gracious, man. It was so awesome. I have a thought about the fleet though. You talk about Hera and all this sort of stuff. I don't know that we're gonna I wouldn't be surprised by anything at this point, right? But I feel like there's a good chance that fleet's still going to be there. I wouldn't be surprised if you got three ships that are feeling very confident, and then you get Thrawn that comes back with a busted Chimera, and that's it, right? Like six snub fighters or whatever.
Is it going to be
And
busted? How many years has it been?
yeah, fair enough. We don't know. I guess we'll find out next week. But
It'd
my
be
point
like
is like
Mad Maxed up.
the thing is, like, we all know Thrawn, right? And this has been one of the things that's come out on this show. I'm over here gushing like crazy. Taylor's gushing like crazy about Thrawn, just how cool he is and all this stuff. And Michael, you get it a good bit from reading the books and the canon stuff and Rebels. But Andy, just seeing him on Rebels, it's like, yeah, this guy's cool, but I don't, whatever. We'll see. I think Michael, your Michael said the same thing. Is like he's just kind of mid. It's just like he's a villain.
Yeah.
And so I think they need to do that in this show. Just really, really have him spank some cheeks and come out and just murk these people. You know what I mean? Like, it would be really, really awesome if he comes back through with that hyperspace ring and really shows everybody that he's back. And Star Wars Explained made the comparison of Order of the Phoenix, right? Where it's just they're like, no, he's not back. There's no way Voldemort's back. No, that's stupid. Yeah, come on. And then of course they see it where everything is, and it's like, there it is. There now. If it ain't the
I have
consequences of my actions,
uh, I don't know.
All
I
right,
have
go
an
ahead.
alternate theory. Okay, so as cool as that would be, right? I'm totally with you. As cool as that'd be the Thrawn we see in Rebels, we've talked about this, is not the Thrawn that we read about in the books, who is not necessarily like he does bad things, but he's not necessarily motivated by the same things. He's not an Imperial diehard, and I feel like if he were to come back in this, I don't know. Taylor's raving about Legends over there in the chat. If he were to come back to this
The
empire that
sky is still
doesn't
blue,
really
guys.
exist, right? Unless he has some sort of contact with the Palpatine who's not dead. I don't really see his motivation for trying to take on the New Republic at this point. I feel like he comes out and sees this and goes, you know what, I'm out. Further, I don't. We've seen him sort of interact with a Jedi. Oh, hang on. We've seen him interact with a Jedi, and he has a lot of respect for people with power and control and the Force. So I'm wondering if, after all these years, he and Ezra have sort of come to terms and maybe an agreement. And so while everyone's sort of thinking, oh, Ezra's going to come back and be this big force for good, and Thrawn's going to come back and be this big force for evil, I'm wondering if they don't sort of come back and they're like, you know what? Total left turn out of all of this. Thrawn, obviously, if we know from the books, has his own problems outside of our galaxy or outside of the Empire and the Republic and their squabbles and going back and forth, which seem rather small in the whole kind of galactic timeline that we know. So I'm just saying, I feel like Thrawn at a certain point, they could bring him back. Not that it would be the most exciting thing, but we could kind of see him maybe, instead of break canon and sort of try to insert this major galactic war and conflict and have him go out and kill a bunch of people and then probably die and disappear before episode 7 happens and nobody even mentions it. Or somehow maybe introduce Snoke, because we need Snoke at some point here. I don't know. We could see something completely different, and we could see something unexpected. We could see him just kind of come back and say, you know what? I'm needed elsewhere, and this isn't my fight anymore, so I'm going to peace out. And just kind of ruin everybody's expectations. I don't know. That seems like really depressing, but I just feel like the Thrawn that we know from the books would probably lose his reasons for trying to kill Ezra at a certain point. And so I'm wondering what Ezra's influence on him for after years and years of being gone could be. I wonder how
So
different he could
that
be as a
element,
person.
yes, that element, I am in total agreement with you that their relationship has got to be an interesting one, and it's one of the things I'm most intrigued by, because he is always someone who will learn about his enemy, interlocutor, whatever relationship he's got at the moment with a person. So that 100%. The other thing about what benefit would he see, or what's his motivation? I mean, all we've seen of the New Republic is just rampant ineptitude, right? Just craziness. And so he's probably looking at this thinking, the Grisk are still out there. I've got all these problems. All the reasons why I thought the Empire was worth it are still true. The rebellion has won in a lot of ways, but they've had their moment and they've shown that they're a joke. This is ridiculous. We can
Yeah.
take over quite easily. There's a lot of Imperial resources, so on and so forth. I don't know if they're going to bring in some Legends things that I don't want to spoil if they do. Um, but there's there's a real case for why the character would come back. And as far as the anti-hero side, I think Balin talking about greater good and all this sort of stuff, having the
Yeah.
moral ambiguity, is setting up something to where he's a little less just Rebels villain. I think
He
this
thinks
show is
he's working for the
showing,
greater good. Yeah.
and this show is kind of illustrating that where Rebels and Clone Wars got dark, it's willing to take it that step further to be like, hey, sit with the implications of this. And I think we're in a spot where we could see, maybe they went more two-dimensional with Thrawn and Rebels, and now we'll get a little bit more. I would not be surprised at
Well, and
all.
that's kind of what I'm hoping is that we do, because otherwise, with the Empire being fractured and more or less defeated, this is 5+ years after. This isn't like immediately after Episode 6. This is 5, 6, 7 years after Episode 6. It's really remnant. Um, I feel like
Yeah,
I don't know, right? So we don't know. But more interesting is Balin's insinuations that there's some sort of power beyond imagine that is
true.
associated with Thrawn that he would be bringing back somehow, and I don't know what that is. I
Starforge?
don't know what. Yeah, yeah,
No, I'm
the
kidding.
Exegol. No, we got it. Those ships had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't know, Ed, if there's spoilers related to the Legends books that might say what sort of power is associated with Thrawn that he's bringing back. I don't know what it is.
Less that, no. Less mystical powers. I'm very intrigued, and I keep thinking about this movie that Filoni's got coming, right? I mean, it's gonna be so cool
Mandoverse
if
movie.
these shows are at this level. Like, what are we gonna do in the cinema? Andy,
There's the
you
idea.
got something to say, Michael? Yeah, go
Oh
ahead.
no,
Go ahead.
sorry. Real quick, we're just gonna do what we did in Mandalorian, where every like half a season we have to go back and round up all the buddies to bring them in. They got to go back to all the places. So maybe we'll bring in. I had said it before. I think it'd be really cool to bring in Bo-Katan to go rescue Sabine. I think, I think with this being sort of a girl power series, I'm in it. I'm all for it. I think it'd be really cool.
So, Andy, I want to loop you back in here. You're the resident, Thrawn agnostic. What do you think of this discussion? And yeah, just kind of let me know where you're at.
I don't fully agree with my Michael that Thrawn is just mid. I did think that he was a interesting enough villain in Rebels. What I liked about him is that he wasn't totally incompetent, like we often see the Empire is in the
Hmm.
shows. Um, he got, and I think we've talked about this on the podcast before, is that where he failed time and time again was the Force. And I think you guys have mentioned that he wants to understand that, or
Hmm.
he would
Hmm.
want to understand something that gets in the way of his intentions. I don't, I haven't read any of the books. I don't know anything about Thrawn, but it's kind of, for me, it's easy to forget about him when I'm watching these episodes because there's so much going on that I do have stock in, I am invested in, but I'm excited to see where he loops in. I don't want Ezra's morality to be corrupted because he had such a beautiful character development by the end of Rebels.
Evil Ezra. Let's go.
But not evil though. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I want
Dark
this.
Ezra. Dark
I want
Ezra.
this like banal, like the banality of evil, like greater good utilitarian Ezra. That's a cool idea. I don't think we're gonna get it, but I think that's a cool idea.
I
Yeah.
mean, we might just end up with a smattering of all of these like non-affiliated pseudo Jedi at this point. I mean, we assuming that Yoda's words at the end of Episode 6 were still true. I think it was Episode 6 when he says like, "Now there's only we're the only ones left." Basically, assuming that wasn't just a reference to the only ones he knew about.
Yeah.
None of these
Man
people
lived
can
20
really
years in
be
a cave,
Jedi, right? Who knows? But none of these people can really be Jedi anymore. So does Ezra count? Or maybe he was really only talking about the galaxy. He just kind of discounted Ezra.
But when I talk about his morality, I don't even mean as a Jedi necessarily, because as much like I love Ahsoka's development. You guys know I love Ahsoka's character development, where she is the light and she is not a Jedi, because what does that word even mean? It attaches these rules and not just, I mean, not just rules. There's a whole like, I'm lost for words right now.
I'm
the
with you.
the whole, not religious aspect of it, but just Ezra's character, how he interacted with the world around him, and seeing him, because this is another kid that is literally just a kid thrown into war, literally a child.
Hmm.
Um, but we see, I mean, at the end of Rebels, we see him not up against Palpatine, but he interacts with Palpatine, right?
And
When
he rises
Palpatine
above it.
offers,
Yeah.
yeah, Palpatine offers him the image of his family, and yeah, he rises above it. So I just it would hurt me, because I'm very much like Hera. I'm the mom, and these are my rebels babies. Like, I just want everybody to be happy.
But
But
it's
yeah.
but that's what's intriguing to me about it. On one hand, totally get it. Like, there's a huge section of the fandom, and even just storytelling in general, that says, like, once the character has climbed the mountain, they should not have to be tempted again, right? Like, fair enough, I get that. But I also really like the idea of, like, that's the difference between Thrawn and Sidious, right? Sidious is always like, how can I tempt you? Right? Like, very satanic type metaphors and allegories. Whereas Thrawn is just like, let's look at this cold reality type of, very, very brutal, very Spartan type utilitarian ideas. And while those are capable of being just as evil, and having just as, or sometimes even more horrible effects for innocence and the galaxy and all of that, you can see how it might convince someone like Ezra in a different way than, just purely selfish reasons, like get your family back or save your friends. It's more, think of all the good you can do if you just let me impose martial law, like, kind of, it's a hard sell when you stratify it down like that. But right, but like, Sabine took the bait, like, it's kind of a different thing.
Yep.
So yes, that's my thought. I'm intrigued. I guess Taylor thinks I made Sidious sound like a vampire. And fair enough. Fair enough. He is kind of vampiric sometimes, in that he does seem to live forever. My gosh, he keeps coming back. All right, guys. Anything else we got here before we get out of here? This, ironically, I think this episode had one of the higher impacts of any Star Wars content of late, outside of maybe Andor for me. But like, way, way tippy top. But there's, like, less to talk about for some weird reason, because
I
there's not
agree.
as much
It's pretty straightforward.
plot. It's just like, hey, you're gonna love this. Sit down and watch it. I don't know. I have very little else to say, but I guess we'll do the thing. Go around the room. Anyone have any final thoughts? I'll start with you, Michael.
No, I agree. I think the last two episodes have been arguably the best kind of fan service. Not a lot in terms of like really deep plot discussion or implications in a lot of ways, especially when, like we all sort of said, this one, it has a lot there, but we don't really think it's ever going to pan out in terms of exactly what it all means. And I think it's smart of them to probably stay away from trying to give this too much meaning, other than just be like, this is something that the fans got to witness and it was really cool and we got to see some character development. Like, that's what this was Ahsoka's character development. We talked about this too. We talked about it from the beginning of saying, hey, when are we going to get to see Ahsoka get back to who she was? When are we going to get to see her sort of be who she's supposed to be? And man, like, we see her, yeah, this sequence here at the end with her in white, when she just has this big smile on her face, we're like, yes.
Yeah.
And the
And
Purrgil.
that,
We didn't talk about the
and the
Purrgil
Purgle, yep.
too.
Yeah. We
Definitely.
also got to answer the question that was on everybody's mind. Everybody was dying to know. do Togruta have ears? And we did at least get the solid answer on that one. They do, in fact, have ear holes. It's kind of interesting. Although I'm still out on why Ahsoka looks so vastly different from Shakti and all the other Togruta we've ever seen. But regardless, they have ears. Good to know. And I've seen a lot of comments
Lauren
about
and
this.
I
Shout
look
out
pretty
to
different too, you know.
seeing a lot of we could talk about this one if you want, but there's some very interesting biological differences besides just colors and markings here. But anyway, cool. The makeup and the just design on her outfit and everything is just superb. The fact that you can't see a single seam line, you can't see any blending, they just did such an incredible job. You can see her sort of head tail thing from all angles, in water, out of water, through action and everything. You know, as much as I've complained about the length of the whatever we're calling them, Leku, though I don't think that's what they are, I understand, and they definitely field tested this thing to make it look pretty solid. So good on them. I'm super happy about it. That's my final
Absolutely.
thought.
Absolutely.
Ears.
I love that. That
Ear
was a
holes.
great final thought, man. No, it was funny because when she had her headband off, I was like, you know, you're exactly right. Like, we never see her this way, and that's
Like,
gotta
can
be
you
what
put
it
that
looks
back on,
like.
please?
Yeah, it looks so different. It's weird.
It's weird.
But I get it. You know, I get it. Thank you. Thank you for confirming that, Mr. Filoni, that they have that type of anatomy. Anyway, it's the same thing as Twi'leks, right? Like, a lot of times people will draw Hera without her goggles, and I'm just like, why she looks so different? And I'm like, yeah, because
Yeah, I'm like, she looks naked. Put those clothes back on the top of her
yeah,
head, please.
yeah, right, yeah, yeah. I'm going off the rails here. I'm sorry, but yes, I love the Ahsoka the White sort of moment here, getting to see her so smiley, coming out, hugging Jason and everything. Very carefree, very much back in her groove. Andy, let's do your final thoughts, and also whatever you had queued up. Add in Purrgil. I want to know what you thought about the Purrgil.
Oh, yeah, again, I'm just gonna sing praises. I thought it was super cool. I was like, it opened its mouth, and I was like, they're not gonna go in its mouth, and then they did, and I was like,
Finding
whoa,
Nemo as hell.
they're in his damn mouth right now. That's crazy. And I loved Ahsoka
I thought they were
knocking
going
on
for a
the
Jonah thing.
glass. I loved Ahsoka knocking on the glass and just like you said earlier, smiling, just like being happy. And then and Hu Yang says something along the lines of, "How do you know like where we're going?" She's like, "I have no idea."
Yep,
She's
yep.
just kind of like
Yep.
it was very what we've been missing from Ahsoka, but what I've been missing.
100%. And this is, this is what we were saying. Like, we know this is going to go somewhere. These guys never, like, Filoni knows the character, for those of us who, none on this show, but, anybody that was worried that they ruined their own character, it's like, come on, we know it's going somewhere. Yeah, I loved it. I was thinking of Finding Nemo, Michael. Jonah. That's probably a more accurate parallel. I loved the Finding Nemo. Hey, she speaks whale. But yeah,
Mhm.
no, I loved the Purrgil are something that I was just so out on when I saw in Rebels. But man, they've come around and they looked great. And I'm just like, I gotta eat some humble pie on this and say I'm a big fan of the Purrgil. I'm thinking of the flying manta rays from KOTOR on Dantooine, and I'm just like, if I ate that hook, line, and sinker. I was talking with Eric when we were hanging out last week, and he was saying, I don't like the Purrgil. They're weird, but I also have to remember that I was a huge fan of the Exogorth that, sits on asteroids eating starships. And so if I could agree with that in Empire, I can get with this. So yeah, it was great. It was great to see. The last final thought I have is something that a little moment in the beginning that I think gets lost is just seeing Hu Yang looking at Sabine's helmet and just saying, like, I really wish they had stuck together. Why do they never listen? And just the way they always inject such emotion into these supposedly emotionless droids is just so impressive. I was wrecked. I was just like, gosh, this guy's got 25,000 years of pain. and it's just all coming out right now. But yeah, it was awesome episode. I cannot wait to see what comes next, and I have no idea if we're gonna do an episode or if I'm gonna be in a hotel talking to you, but either way, we'll do something. And what you need to do is join the Discord, okay? It's linked in the description here. It's a lot of fun. We all have fun. We post memes. We got spoiler, block out features. It's a great community. Join up. Have fun. It'd be great to have you there. In the meantime, this has been On Program. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. This was a lot of fun. Do the YouTube stuff, man. Leave us a like, subscribe, comment. You're hanging out with us live. We appreciate you. There's 3 of you here. Now, that's a big deal. That's a big deal, okay? That's a big deal. Pat yourself on the back for being one of those 3 people. All right, all the links are there. Find us on Discord. It's a great time. Add On Program Pod. We'll see you next time.